Do you know where you get your news and information from? Are you sure? Is this Russiagate 2.0? As the new official spokesman for Go and Do Travel, I want to tell you all about this company and what they have to offer. Latter-day Saint themed trips all over the world. They've got trips in Mexico. They've got trips in the Caribbean, here domestically with church history trips. In Europe, you can go to Turkey and Greece for New Testament tours. Gospel on the Nile. See the temples of Rome, Paris, and London. Go and Do does an excellent job on these tours, and everyone always makes so many new friends. Go to goanddotravel.com, see what they have to offer, and put in the promo code CWIC, C-W-I-C. Now, back to that information that you get. In a surprising twist, 3 well-known podcasters, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin, recently found themselves at the center of a political controversy involving Russian money. Accusations of propaganda, a U.S. Department of Justice indictment. But before we jump to conclusions, let's break down what's actually happening. The DOJ has accused a Tennessee-based company, later identified as Tenet Media, this is from Chen, an influencer, a conservative influencer, accused the company of receiving nearly $10 million from employees of RT. This is Russia's state-owned media network. I've seen this in the U.S. several times in different areas that I've been in. If you travel overseas, you may see it as well. According to the indictment, the goal was to promote Kremlin-friendly narratives ahead of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. This keeps coming back over and over again, but this time it appears to be real. Here's the kicker. Tenet Media hosts the content of Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin, none of whom, by their own accounts, had any clue about the Russian funds. They were getting paid, but they thought it was from some rich guy in Paris. They've all been quick to deny any involvement, painting themselves as the unwitting victims of a Moscow-backed scheme. That appears to be what has happened. Tim Pool, host of the Culture War podcast, took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to clear his name, stating that if these allegations turn out to be true, both he and the other commentators were deceived. In his post, Pool emphasized that his podcast existed long before Tenet Media became involved and will continue long after, explaining that Tenet's role was merely to host the live broadcast on its YouTube channel. In other words, Tim Pool's podcast was simply duplicated and broadcast on RT, the Russian state media company. And in true Tim Pool fashion, he added a colorful remark about Russian President Vladimir Putin being, well, less than charming. Benny Johnson, another podcaster caught in this mess, shared a similar sentiment. Johnson explained that his company entered into a typical business deal with Tenet Media to provide content as an independent contractor. Again, these podcasters were being paid millions of dollars a year. This was a deal that was later terminated. Disturbed by the indictment, he assured his followers that he had no knowledge of any shady financial backing and that his lawyers were ready to deal with any suggestions otherwise. Meanwhile, Dave Rubin kept it short and simple and said, "I knew absolutely nothing about any of this fraudulent activity, period." Rubin pointed out that the DOJ has yet to contact him about the matter and he has no further plans to comment. All of these channels, as of this recording, are all still operating on their podcast platforms and on their YouTube channels. Those of Chen and her husband and Tenet Media have all been removed. But again, this goes back to where are you getting your information from? Think about how money could be given to your favorite influencer. We've seen Kamala Harris try to do this in her campaign, and that's bad enough. But getting money from Russia? Or what about China, Iran, any of our enemies? Pooling money to individuals that have a large, broad audience. This just muddies the waters more. We are going to have to continue to work harder and harder to try and find the signal among the noise. Who do you trust? This is a major black eye for these conservative podcasters who are apparently duped, or at least adjacently involved with this Russian money. Let's get back to the DOJ here. According to the indictment, Tenet Media received substantial funds from Konstantin Kalashnikov and Elena Afanasieva. Boy, that was pretty good. Both employees of RT, who now face charges of violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The DOJ alleges that RT funneled this money to promote content sympathetic to Russia's interests, especially concerning its ongoing war in Ukraine and broader geopolitical aims. So you could have Russia giving money to influencers, and here and there they drop in a persuasive argument that Russia should be supported or undermining Ukraine, regardless of what you think of the war. It's propaganda. Attorney General Merrick Garland explained that these funds were part of a scheme to influence public discourse in the U.S. ahead of the 2024 election. And here's the next problem. Do you believe the Department of Justice? I mean, this appears to be true at first glance, but it's not like the DOJ hasn't been weaponized before. Attorney General Garland stated that the American people have the right to know when foreign powers attempt to meddle in the free exchange of ideas. Absolutely. We need to know that. Would they have covered it up if it was money going to the left? Who knows? The indictment also revealed that the podcasters and their millions of followers were unaware of Tenet Media's Russian ties. So they seem to absolve everybody else outside of Lauren Chen. Now, one particularly alarming revelation from the indictment is that at one point, RT, the Russian media station, asked Tenet Media to produce content linking a terror attack in Moscow to Ukraine and to the United States. According to DOJ documents, Tenet's founder responded that one of their commentators was happy to cover it. Those are in quotation marks, happy to cover it. It's this kind of shadowy manipulation that the DOJ is cracking down on. Now, where does this leave the podcasters? While the DOJ presses charges against the RT employees, Poole, Johnson, and Rubin are keen to distance themselves from any wrongdoing. They've been vocal in asserting that they maintained full editorial control over their content and had no knowledge of any Russian backing. If anything, the scandal underscores the complexity of modern media operations. Again, following the sourcing of information, where does it all come from? And even if it's not coming from foreign influences or foreign money, where are influencers getting their information from? And don't get me wrong. I mean, the legacy media, where are they getting their information from? It's almost always from the talking points of Media Matters. It's propaganda. It's no different. In a world where content creators are courted by networks and platforms from all corners, the lines of financial backing can sometimes blur, often with international implications. For now, the podcasters in question continue to deny any knowledge of involvement, framing themselves as unsuspecting players in a much larger geopolitical game. This case is just one part of a larger story about foreign influence in American politics. As Garland and the DOJ pointed out, foreign powers, particularly Russia, have been accused of meddling in U.S. elections before. The 2024 election appears to be no exception. Now, again, going back to Russiagate, branches of the DOJ being involved with the Steele dossier, the made-up problem from the Hillary Clinton campaign, and then the recent revelation from Mark Zuckerberg's letter talking about how the Biden campaign and the FBI had stated to them that it was Russia and Russian bots that were influencing users of Instagram and Facebook to support Donald Trump, all turned out to be a big, fat lie. Not a Russian lie, a U.S. political lie. And here we are again in an election year and more problems, more issues, more garbage to sort through. The 2024 election appears to be no exception. And while the podcasters tied to Tenet Media may have been unknowingly swept up in this scandal, it's clear that Russia's playbook for influencing American politics is evolving, according to the DOJ. So what happens next? For now, the spotlight is on the DOJ as it continues its investigation. Meanwhile, Poole, Johnson, and Rubin, the podcasters, will likely keep doing what they do best, creating content, making headlines, and in this case, trying to clear their names. In the age of global media and political intrigue, this story is a reminder that even your favorite podcast, could be, might have more going on behind the scenes than meets the ear. Thanks for listening.